Hey all, welcome to my channel. Um, so I'm gonna do something a little bit different. There is gonna be some editing, of course, in the situation, but it's more of a case where I'm trying to apply out to what we see with some movie reviews and such. I mean, I've done reviews already of some shows. You might see more reviews of movies that I've seen or am seeing or have seen recently, as well as whether it be on Netflix or on the movie theaters or on Amazon Prime or even on Peacock, Paramount Plus, whatever it may be in those situations, as well as the fact of um, shows, TV shows specifically, um, and sometimes some of the episodes. I mean, I've already made reviews about Picard, and specifically Picard 3 as well too. So one of those things that I'll be reviewing now is, granted, it's been a while now. I want to say though I did watch Oppenheimer, or Oppenheimer, depending on how you want to pronounce it, uh, a week after its release. I didn't do it the week of, or I waited a week basically. One factor is because well, there was not enough time, as well as I think I was out of town at that point as well too. So I will say this though, Oppenheimer, of course, is another of Christopher Nolan's movies. Where if you are a Christopher Nolan fan, you've seen a lot of his movies. Oppenheimer is basically a case of sort of, I don't want to say biopic drama of Oppenheimer's life, but more of, it's a bit of, basically, more than anything else. Not talking about the Manhattan Project itself. That's probably more of in the background, but or secondary, quite honestly. Versus Oppenheimer himself, as far as like how he was chosen for the projects, etc. Basically, and like his life in general. Um, Now with Christopher Nolan, I mean, I've seen quite a large number of his movies. Quite honestly, I mean, I haven't seen Following. It's one of the things I think I gotta start looking into. But I did see Memento, which was, I thought, was a really great movie. Similar to Insomnia as well too. Well, actually, I don't know if Insomnia was a great movie, but it was definitely interesting to see how Al Pacino interacted with um, Robin Williams, in the aspect of how Robin Williams played a really dark character, and it was like out of his norm in a ways as well too, which was really surprising. And I think people weren't used to that, and I sort of wasn't using that, quite honestly, with Robin Williams playing this dark of a character, quite honestly. But it, it played out well, basically. I mean, it was done decently enough. And then, of course, then there's Batman Begins. Now, that was a pretty good movie. I actually thoroughly enjoyed that movie, quite honestly. Specifically, of like how Christopher Nolan decides to take his take on the on Batman, basically, and like, how it reignited the genre of superhero movies. Once Batman Begins became popular, one Batman Begins become once Batman Begins became popular. Say that five times fast. Um, then it started to kick off, Marvel's jump into the movies. I mean, Spider-Man, of course, from Fox, did decently, or really well actually. It was just Spider-Man 2 and Spider-Man. Spider-Man 2 was good as well too. Let's not forget. And we're talking about Tobey Maguire's. But then Spider-Man 3 fell short in expectations and plot lines, and it felt like there was just too many villains, too many things going on at one point or another. And as a result, I think people just like didn't want to watch any more of that, because like the X-Men did start off in a bit, but let's not forget the original Batman, of course, Superman as well too. But after that, I think when they saw how popular those were, and people started to get a little bit of superhero movie fatigue, with the Fantastic Four, Ghost Rider, Blade One was good. Let's not forget that. But in any case, all those stuff were pretty much sort of on the decline until Batman Begins came out, and it was like really, really well done. That I think reignited the superhero movies at that point as well too. And of course, I think one of his more phenomenal movies. I mean, of course, it came out at the same time as The Illusionist, but The Prestige by far was really well done. Specifically with Christian Bale, um, Michael Caine, of course, and oh, I forgot his name. Give me a second. I gotta look it up here. Michael Caine and Hugh Jackman. Oh, jeez, how would I forget Hugh Jackman? But anyways, it was really well done. And of course, then there was The Dark Knight, which was sort of one of those Oscar-worthy movies in a ways, to the point where, like, Keith Ledger did a phenomenal performance, of course, and I think Nolan got the best out of him at that point as well too. And then from there, it led to Inception, which I thought was a good movie as well too. I mean, it was one of those mind-bending movies, but it was really good, and I enjoyed it, thoroughly enjoyed it as well. So right after the Batman Begins, or the Dark Knight, and then of course then after Inception was The Dark Knight Rises, and I thought it was the closing of the trilogy from Nolan's perspective. And I thought it was good, but it didn't meet the expectations of Batman Begins and The Dark Knight. The Dark Knight Rises felt slightly short, but it was still really good. I thoroughly enjoyed it, to be quite honestly with you. And then, of course, then, there was the case of Interstellar, which for 90% of the movie, I thought was great. I thought 90% of the movie was great, and specifically the fact that he was focusing a lot on the science aspect of things. The one thing I didn't enjoy was the fact of, the character, Matthew McConaughey's character, going into the black hole. I mean, like, some human to survive the black hole is really far-fetched at that point. I mean, granted, yeah, there's a whole case where, like, our future, not our future selves, but more of the fact of how you had the case of humanity evolved far more beyond the concept of space and time, that it no longer held bearing to them, that it's possible they took Matthew McConaughey's character outside of the black hole and, threw him into this other dimension basically at that point. But I thought everything else was by far pretty good at that point too, quite honestly. And then of course you had Dunkirk, which I enjoyed, I really liked it, and it was kind of, again, another historical aspect of things basically, but, sort of Christopher Nolan's take on it a little bit as well too, like a little bit of Hollywood flavor. Tenet, I hate to say it, it kind of fell short for me. Going back in time and such, or going in the future, it was like sort of time traveling in ways where the user had the ability to not time travel, but more of basically going all, it was a mind altering situation. I want to say there was part confusion a little bit, but then there was parts where I was not quite deemed as being straightforward. I guess it was a storyline that was a little bit different. And then, of course, we came to Oppenheimer, which, of course, in this case, says sort of a biopic of, Robin Oppenheimer a little bit, but not more of like how he created the Manhattan Project. I think that's a secondary story, but more of he himself, the person, basically. And like the fact is like how much of a womanizer he was, which I didn't really realize, to be quite honest. I had no idea he was an actual womanizer. Like he cheated on his wife, essentially, and was still seeing the first woman he loved, I guess, or his first girlfriend or his first mistress, with his wife. It was really surprising at that point. And then there's the aspect of like taking in the ideals of Marxism and a little bit of communism, or taking the ideals of communism more than anything else, and like being prior to the whole aspect of what the Soviet Union was, just like in the aspect of for fairness and equality across all classes. Now, the one thing though I wished the movie focused on a little or applied to was the results of the bombing of Nagasaki and Hiroshima. The fact that it didn't, I know it wasn't part of the movie, it didn't need to be part of the movie. People already knew the horrific outcomes of it, but at the same time, it didn't really show his true nature of what he thought when when both of these cities were bombed, basically. And it would have been interesting to show that aspect as well too, like his I I don't want to say personality, but his ethics of questioning his ethics of actually creating this bomb. Because originally the whole purpose of creating the bomb was because the Germans were doing it, so like the U.S. had to do it, get ahead of them basically at that point. But it's a matter of then at that point, like using it and utilizing it, using these bombs essentially, and for the sake of reducing casualties on the American front, basically more than anything else. But it was one of those things where it never dealt with that dilemma after this was created. I mean, you had a brief aspect of it in the movie itself, basically, but the characters that were portrayed. I mean, you had basically, Matt Damon, essentially playing the general, basically to the point where, like, he chose Oppenheimer. But really, let's not forget, it was Teller and such that were actually creating these, developing the weapons first and foremost, developing this first and foremost, and then they chose Oppenheimer. He chose Oppenheimer to oversee the project because he was a great judge of character. Did Oppenheimer qualify to be the project manager? Logistically speaking, yes. From a perspective of being a qualified physicist to handle this, yes and no, basically. It all varies, basically, to the point of, like, depending on how it worked out in that situation. But the fact that they were showing also, I want to say, what's his name? Robert Downey Jr.'s or RDJ's character, as far as how that character felt slighted and sort of had his quote-unquote vengeance or revenge by creating these hearings against Oppenheimer. I mean, it was interesting in that aspect. And I think RDJ had that great acting persona to, for that role. But I think it was more of a case where I think they could have done a little bit better, as well as a few other characters for that matter as well too. Emily Blunt as the wife, I don't know. She played it well. She played well enough for the character. I don't think it was Oscar worthy. Similar to what's her name, Poe. I forgot. I don't know how to pronounce her name. The one that played the mistress. I don't know if she played that character correctly as well. To be honest, I think it could have been a bit different. But then again, you know what? Nolan's been known to get the best of from his actors and actresses. Now, the one thing I will say is this: Josh Hartnett was the right choice in this case, and actually seeing him getting his role revitalized, or his not role, but his more of his career being revitalized is pretty good. I thought he had a pretty good career going, and then for whatever reason just went downhill, and that was it. From that aspect, I mean, I'm surprised that. I think this is one of the rare movies. I don't know. Maybe he was in it. I gotta see actually, because I think this is one of the rare times where I don't think I've seen actually Michael Caine actually in one of Christopher Nolan's movies. I mean, you were seeing since I guess the Prestige or the Dark Batman, Batman Rises, that, or not Batman, but Batman Begins. We were seeing like a lot of Michael Caine. I'm kind of curious to see if Michael Caine was in this movie, because I don't think he was unless I checked. Sorry, I'm actually looking at IMDb in this case right now. Give me a minute. So, Cillian Murphy, Blunt, Downey Jr., Matt Damon, Alden Ehrenreich. Alden Ehrenreich actually was pretty interesting as a Senate aide, basically. And that was one of the rare things. I think they're trying to build up Alden's character or resume a little bit, considering that it seemed like he was a flop with the Solo movie, Han Solo movie, basically, and him playing Han Solo. He didn't do so well, and this kind of actually helped out. I think this kind of helped out a little bit. And I think he's building up his chops, his actor chops at this point as well, too. Let me see. Yeah, I do not see. I do not see. Yeah, it looks like this is the first time I've actually haven't seen Michael Caine. Michael Caine, of course, he's been well known to be in all of his Nolan movies, most of his Nolan movies. I mean, one of the things with Christopher Nolan is once you work with him, he'll want to work with you in all the movies at that point as well, too. On a set, like you'll see, some actors in another movie, like Batman. Of course, Christian Bale from Batman to The Prestige, and in cases of, well, as I said, Michael Caine. And who else? Who else? Who else? Who else? Let's see. He's done quite a large number of movies, right? So, I mean, of course, you had. Actually, I think Michael Caine was not in Tenet. Actually, Tenet. That's really surprising. Dunkirk as well too. He was not in that, I believe. So it's interesting seeing that he wasn't in half these movies. But in any case. He will see recurring actors and actresses in some movies that he's taken and using them in other movies at that point as well. So this is why I was a little surprised that he didn't use Anne Hathaway as the character. It was surprising that aspect. Sorry about that. I had to pause. Unfortunately, something came up. So yeah. I enjoyed the movie. Like I said, I think there could have been some actors that could have been changed a little bit here and there. Overall, I thought it was a good movie. Is this worthy of paying $20 at the movie theater? No, only if you're going to do a matinee thing. I would wait for the matinee thing. Honestly, probably just wait till it comes out on HBO. I mean, even though he says it's look at it in IMAX, 77 millimeter IMAX. That's only if you want the effects of the bomb itself. But quite honestly, I don't think that's really necessary. It's just overkill. Quite honestly, you don't need the IMAX experience. It would be good to also watch it at home. From home. And for those that are not familiar with Oppenheimer or the Manhattan Project, this will be helpful for that at that point. With that, I'll leave it at that. Let me know your thoughts. Please leave a comment in the comment section. I do read all comments. What do you think of the movie? If you watched the movie, if you haven't seen the movie, watching the movie. Planning to do anything with the movie? Like we're planning to wait for go to see it in the movie theater, or would you see it just at home, like at home on your big screen TV or on your laptop, depending on what it is. If you have HBO Max, chances are it's going to be released on HBO Max or maybe Netflix. One of the two. Most likely HBO, my best bet, since it wasn't made by Warner Brothers. But with that, I'll leave it at that. And of course, please look forward to movie reviews as well as TV show reviews or episode reviews as well too. Also talk about what's up in Purple. Kind of interesting to see what happens with that one that comes out as well. But with that, I'll leave it at that. Unfiltered. Actually, this is not unedited. I said unedited and unrehearsed. Until next time.